If you are a senior leader and there is even a rumor about your company being acquired, whether it is private or public, today's conversation on the Wealth Cafe is going to be for you, because I want to make sure that you are prepared and having financial conversations the moment you hear something is happening. Now, we can't live our lives off of rumors. We're not going to make any monumental financial decisions here and go crazy until a deal is signed. However, there are a lot of pieces and conversations that you can have and put in motion before anything actually comes to fruition. Now, why is this even important? Well, when an acquisition happens, it can have a significant impact, both positive and even negative, on your financial situation. In past acquisitions, both private and public, I've seen clients of mine that have had incredible liquidity events where they've received either large amounts of stock, large amounts of cash compensation, and it's been a life-changing event for them. I've also seen high-level executives have their roles eliminated because of consolidations at companies. It can change the structure, and these are also moments you need to prepare for. Now, it's a lot of moving pieces, and every situation is going to be different. And this is when you have to work with your financial advisor and tax accountant to figure out all of the moving pieces, because you and the executive sitting next to you probably don't have the same comp and structure plan. And this is when everything becomes very nuanced. So I want to give you some key things to be thinking about and working on if you have a rumor or an inkling that there is an acquisition in your future. Now, one of the biggest things to do is make sure you have documentation. I could say this 100 times over, but it is something that so many people forget to do. And then when the deal is being signed, they're scrambling to find everything and they don't really know where things are, who to contact, or what to do. Something that I personally have clients of mine do when they are going through this situation, or even better, when they are starting a role and receive any type of equity, is I have them upload to our secure document vault the equity compensation letter and the awards letter that they are given by their HR team, and also their offer letter from when they started. Now, for some, that means digging back into the vault and finding some of these things, but the earlier you ask for them and have them in your possession, the better. Now, as you are going through, make sure you are identifying exactly what type of equity and compensation that you have. It could be anything from RSUs or stock options like ISOs or NSOs. We have an episode fully diving into that coming in the next couple of months. Or you may have performance shares or carried interest in terms of an equity award that haven't even been vested to you yet, or have a more complex structure behind them. Those are typically with private companies, and so it is important to also communicate to your financial team whether your company is private or public and what direction they are going to be acquired in. Is it going to be acquired by another public company, private equity, a hedge fund? What are the rumblings that you are starting to hear? Now, if you are someone that has RSUs, it can be a little easier to calculate what the potential cost and gain of your award is going to be. You can go online, check the current share price, or see what they are offering to purchase shares at. The math can be simpler. When you have something like stock options, it becomes a little more complex to figure out. With stock options, I've seen a lot of clients that once they hear those rumors or inklings of, our company might get acquired, there might be a payday down the road, a lot of people all of a sudden scramble and say, I need to purchase and exercise all of my options right now. This is a key moment to bring in your financial team for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you have stock options, you need to talk to them about how many of them you should vest. Just because you're offered, for example, 10,000 doesn't always mean that you should exercise all 10,000. I've had clients of mine in the past where we sit down and say, what percentage of the options are we willing to invest in and actually exercise? And it's usually coming down to, what are we willing to lose if for some reason this deal falls through? I've seen it happen time and time again in both public and private companies. Now, you also need to figure out where the funding is going to come in order to exercise those options. Do you have cash available? Are there going to be tax implications if you need to liquidate funds in order to raise cash to exercise those options? You also need to figure out, what kind of timeline are you looking at? Is this merger or acquisition going to happen very quickly? Do you have a bit of runway time, a year or two? Every company and acquisition is going to look a little different. And I've also seen a lot of them where talks can happen faster and things can turn around faster than you can get everything together. What are you going to do if that situation happens? These are important things to talk to your financial team about. Now, the other key piece of this conversation is taxes. Everyone gets so excited for this big payday. I will get emails from clients about what number they expect to receive. And I always pause and remind them, and say, I'm so excited for you, but let's figure out what this number is going to look like on an after-tax basis. Now, this is going to vary depending on what type of equity you have, what type of capital gains are embedded in there, how long you've owned things, if it will be capital gains versus ordinary income. This is when I love to pull in an accountant and say, what are we looking at full picture here? It's also going to matter on when will your payout occur. Is it going to be a lump sum? Is it going to happen over several years? Once again, everyone has a different structure and plan based on what you are being offered, what your executive level is. It can vary from person to person on what they have negotiated. Now, the third piece of the puzzle is congratulations, you have now all of a sudden received this either lump sum of money, or you may have also received a lump sum of new stock in your account. Let's talk about the actual acquisition. Let's say the documents have signed, it's the exciting day, you're popping champagne because you are about to see some type of payout. And I use payout in air quotes here, and give that in case anybody is listening to this and isn't seeing me do the actual air quotes, because you may see a payout in cash, or you may also see a payout in terms of equity compensation again. For example, we had the Microsoft LinkedIn acquisition that happened several years ago. LinkedIn employees were then given Microsoft shares in exchange for their LinkedIn shares. They were now faced with a concentrated position of Microsoft shares rather than what they may have had in LinkedIn. Now, why does this matter? You just traded one asset for another. However, this can impact how your current asset allocation is in your portfolio. It may change how you want to diversify. And it may also change your compensation structure going forward. Because this acquisition has taken place, it may change the structure or deal that you have with this company. Now, let's talk about things going in the other direction. For example, Twitter went from being a public company to a private company. I had a couple clients who were working there at the time, and so what happened with their Twitter shares is rather than being given stock in the private company, they were just given a cash payout and were now sitting on a lump sum of cash that they had to say, okay, what am I going to do with this in the future? And that's what I want you to think about regardless of what type of payout you get, is what are your future goals? This is when you need to sit back and say, does it make sense to sell? Does it make sense to hold on to these things? Do I need to diversify? Do I need to now build around my portfolio? This is when your financial team can really help you look at your future goals and decide, where does this money need to go? Or how does this new asset fit into your greater financial picture and all of your holdings? Now, let's talk about the negative side of acquisition. There's a couple pieces in here, and it would be wrong of me not to cover them. It can be an incredibly exciting process, but throughout my career, I've seen several of them fall apart. All the way up to I had a client who was so excited, sent me an email that she was sitting in the presentation talking about an IPO, and unfortunately, it never came to fruition. You may see something like this happening with an IPO, an acquisition, going private, going public, whatever it might be. But until things are signed on the dotted line, I encourage you not to go crazy and start spending this money or making any large financial decisions. It is essential to have a plan, but putting things in motion happens once the deal is actually signed. The other thing I see people do is not plan ahead. They sit here and they take the opposite approach where they're like, this is never gonna happen, this is out of this world. However, it's important to have these conversations, and this is why you have a financial team behind you, is so they can help you prepare. The worst case scenario is they say, hey, this is a lottery ticket. If nothing happens, great. We still have a plan in place without it. The other hard thing I've seen is, especially at the executive level, when you have two companies, if they are merging together, we see a lot of duplicative roles. Not every company needs 2 chief people officers, 2 heads of marketing, whatever it might be. So we typically see layoffs that occur, consolidation of roles, or a shift. Or I've also had clients who didn't love the new management that came in and they no longer wanted to stay at that company. Make sure you are then preparing for, what does it look like if my role gets eliminated? Do I have an emergency fund? Do I have a backup plan? Do I have my network in place too if I need to start looking for a new role? And if you no longer like the company that it's becoming, are you prepared to make the jump and go elsewhere? That's when it's important to understand your full compensation structure, and if you are looking for other roles, what benefits do you want? What pay do you need? What types of equity? That's a conversation for a later date, but all things to keep in mind and make sure you have the right financial team in place for. If this is something you are personally going through, or you are expecting to see a merger or acquisition in your company's future and you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is something I absolutely love to geek out on and would love to help you talk through. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Wealth Cafe, and I look forward to seeing you next time.